Hey guys, it's me. It's Queen Onset Haru, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. Also, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, pass it on to somebody else who might like to hear it, and leave us a positive comment in the comment section. Now, today's video is one that we've touched on before, we've discussed before, but I had to talk about it again because I've gotten a lot more information and complaints and questions and things about it. So we have to revisit this particular thing. There are certain things that I talk to Aquarius about all the time. Ghosting is one of those things. The other thing I talk to them about a lot is keeping it too real. Okay, I'm in like 3 or 4 different Facebook groups, and oftentimes this comes up. Aquarius, keep it real. Aquarius, spit the truth. And by some accounts, we're called the truth seekers. So that all makes perfect sense to me. It's good to be honest. It's good to be truthful. It's good. I think it's one of the best things in the world I ever did was decide I'm going to tell the truth all the time and see what happens. That was the best day of my life. And I feel like that's wonderful because as Aquarius, it's something that we really take to. We really take to the truth because it's easy. It's easier to tell the truth than remember a bunch of things you made up. Anyway, so I'm with that. I'm real with that. I want you guys to know that. But the problem that I'm having is that some of us, many of us, keep it too real. What does it mean to keep it too real? It doesn't mean that you should fake or lie in the least bit. What it means is that sometimes when you say things to people, you are hurting them. You are verbally abusing them. You have no tact to what you say. It's too blunt. And people are complaining to you and to others about your crass, rude, nasty mouth. And some of us are worse than others because some of us, and some of us, I'm going to go all into it. Some of us are worse than others. Okay? Some of us are constantly crass, constantly rude, and we just free and think that that's cool and that's just going to be mean. If you don't like it, then you just don't like it. And then some of us, we actually do try, like I do, and kind of mess up at times, especially with strangers. Some of the time, it's easier for me to communicate in a kind, compassionate way with people that I'm already familiar with because I know what triggers not to hit on. I automatically always know. But sometimes I mess this up, especially when I'm talking on the internet. I messed it up the other day. But the bottom line is to try to be as compassionate as we can possibly be when talking to other people. It's just a matter of trying. And every time I have this conversation with any Aquarius, especially when they're struggling with it, the first thing they say to me is the first thing I said when I first heard the concept is, why do I have to change? Why can't I just be myself? Why isn't telling the truth, keeping it real, why isn't that enough? And the reason is because you're hurting people. If your truth hurts other people, you got a conflict because the truth doesn't have to hurt. If you have to tell somebody something, there's ways of saying things to people. It's ways of approaching someone, you see. We, as Aquarius, have to consider that a lot of times our approach and our talk is too harsh for other people. We have to consider their feelings. And every time I say this to an Aquarius, they're like, why I gotta change? I don't believe in changing another person. If a person isn't in a way that I want to deal with, I just leave them alone. I don't try to change them to what I want them to be. I tried that when I was younger. It doesn't work well. But there is a time when you should change. A lot of people are like, I don't want to change. It is a time when you should change. When there's something about you that is problematic, that is harmful, that is negative to the people that you care about, you need to look at your behavior, and that's when it needs to change. So if your husband is telling you that you're not speaking to him in a manner that he appreciates, you're being, you're being too blunt, you're being too crass, you're hurting his feelings, whatever the case is. I had one wife telling me how she goes in the bathroom and cries so that the Aquarius won't hear her. And I was like, why don't you tell the Aquarius they hurt your feelings? And she's like, I did, and he didn't change. He feels as though he doesn't have to change. Why do I have to change? And that's what Aquarius always say to me. So when she said it, I was like, okay, I've played that scene before. So I knew exactly what she was trying to say. But the Aquarius, he's like, oh, I'm keeping it real. And your wife in the bathroom crying because of the way you was talking to her. So look, I'm not saying, like I said before, that people should change themselves. I'm not saying you should change yourself for another person. What I'm saying is that if there's something about you that's not cool, that's not good, that's not positive, emotionally abusing your friends and family is not cool. And just saying, for those of us who are just like, I'm just keeping it real, that's not a good enough excuse. You can be honest without hurting people. That's bullshit. You can be very honest with people without hurting them. So my thing to you is that if you're losing people in your life, if people are telling you that your speech and your manner of talking to them and addressing them is hurtful or harmful, you absolutely should consider doing something else. And I hear this all the time. As a matter of fact, let me tell you about this scenario that I dealt with a couple years ago. A wife and husband came to me for a couples reading. In a couples reading, I read the relationship. We look at cards to see where is the relationship, where is it going, what can be improved, what does the wife need to do, what does the husband need to do. It's very balanced, and it talks about everybody's part in the whole scenario. As we were doing the cards, I could see that they were codependent, number one. The relationship was basically over. There was no passion, there was no partnership. They were more like roommates from what I was looking at. And all of it was because he was very crass. He was very crass. And he'd always been crass. It wasn't like he just became crass. He was crass when she met him. But I think that she expected him to soften, or she expected him to at least try over time. And they had been, by the time they came to me years ago, they had been together for years. It wasn't a brand new relationship. And I guess over time, she had just realized that he really wasn't going to change. So instead of breaking up, they kind of just drifted apart. They were still in the same household, but they just kind of drifted apart. And they were still sleeping together sometimes, and then she started getting really, really distant. And she was having an affair. At the time, he didn't know that, but I saw it in the cards. So she was having an affair, and she started to get more and more distant. And all of this was because of the fact that he was so rough and harsh with her. Now, I'm not saying she was right for having the affair. The affair was dead wrong. She should have just left. She should have just been like, look, this is not working for me, and she just left. But instead, she went and found someone to be tender with her, is the bottom line. Somebody that would hold her, somebody that wasn't so rough, that kind of thing, He found out about this much later. So at the time that I'm doing the cards and I'm explaining this to them, the first thing he said was, she needs to stop being so soft. She knows how I am. We've been together all this time. She basically needs to toughen up her skin, is what he was trying to say. And he was like, I don't mean no harm by it, that kind of thing. And that just wasn't acceptable. He's an Aquarius, she's a Virgo. And it just wasn't acceptable for her. She was just like, no, I'm not. I'm not doing that. And instead of, like I said, them breaking up, they had just kept on having this dynamic. So during the reading, we discussed what could change on both sides. We discussed all, the things that were going wrong. He spent the entire reading trying to tell me what the cards meant. He don't even know how to read cards, but spent the whole time looking at the pictures trying to say they didn't mean what they meant. You see? Because anytime it says something he didn't like, when he said something he liked, he was cool with it. And he was, in agreement. But when it says something that he didn't like that he needed to be more tender with his wife, he tried to say it said something else based on the pictures that he couldn't really read. So the bottom line was that it was a total disaster. They had some more problems. I saw them a few more times, and eventually they broke up because one night they got into an argument, not a physical altercation, but an argument. And their 18-year-old son jumped in the middle. The husband and him started to fight. The cops came, and they both caught a charge and had to go to anger management. At that moment, when that happened, the wife went into therapy. And very shortly after, they broke up. But the point of the matter was that the only thing he had to do was be more considerate about how he talked to and treated his woman. That's all she was asking for. And this happens with our romantic relationships. It happens with our children. It happens with a number of different places, a number of different areas, And my thing is that I really started to do this myself as I realized that, people push my buttons. People say ignorant stuff to me all the time on the internet or things like that will happen. And the first thing that comes to my mind, because I'm Aquarius and I got that fire, the first thing that comes to my mind is all of the things I can say in this second to destroy them. That's what comes up. The fire goes, oof, And then I sit there and tell myself all of the reasons why that is petty. All of the reasons why I know better. All of the reasons why that's weak. Only a weak person takes pleasure in tearing other people down. Any child can tear somebody down, but that's not who I want to be. I want to be somebody who lifts people up. So any child, any like, you ever hear somebody bragging about how they can tear somebody's life apart? They're so vicious, and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, that's not even something to brag about. But to that person, that weak, powerless person, that ability is power to them. And I sit there and tell myself all of the reasons why that's petty, childish, and bullshit. Back up off the situation, leave this person alone, block them if you got to, and move the hell on. So I understand why Aquarius cuss people out, especially when they push your buttons. And I also understand wanting to be free, not wanting to have to censor your words, wanting to be yourself. I understand all of that. I got you on that. But the problem is that when it's causing problems in your relationships, when you're losing loved ones, when your children don't want to come see you because your mouth is so nasty, when you're getting into arguments with family members all the time, or you have beef with everybody at your office, because you're talking down to people, or or you're being too blunt, those types of situations. When you have an environment with other people, you don't want to be in a hostile environment. You want a peaceful, harmonious environment. And one of those ways is by checking how you talk to people. I always tell people, whenever you can, talk to people with respect. That's the least you can do. So, in the case of the woman that told me she goes in the bathroom and cries, her boyfriend at that time did not know. He didn't even know that he was hurting her feelings. So I ask you to check yourself. And I check myself all the time. To check ourselves and how we talk to people and how we treat other people. One of the things that, there's an Egyptian proverb that says, you can get emeralds from the pharaoh as well as from the handmaiden. And what the proverb means, when you break it down, the proverb means that you can get value from important people, quote unquote, as well as just ordinary people. So try to talk to everybody with respect. And when you can't talk to somebody with respect, that's somebody you probably shouldn't be talking to. And if they're not talking to you with respect, you need to demand your respect, or again, there's somebody you shouldn't be talking to. So Aquarius, I know you keep it real. I want you to stay truthful. I admire that about you. But you got to watch your delivery, Aquarius. And you got to be more gentle and compassionate with the people that you care about. So for those of us that have this issue sometimes, I ask you to think about it. And look at the person that's in your life and think about how you're treating them, how you're showing up, how you're talking to them. Breathe life into the people around you. Don't take away from them. Okay? All right, guys, if you would like to have a reading done, please email me and I got your back. Also, come back soon because I have a lot more to say. See you later.